This podcast is brought to you by Racing Thread, Formula One clothing for literally any occasion. Their clothing features subtle, evocative, embroidered designs of your favorite F1 moments. From Ricciardo's McHorsey entrance to Kevin's first pole. From Pierre and Yuki's bromance to Inspector Seb, the moments are endless. Whether you're out to dinner with friends, watching the race at home, or cheering in the grandstands, gone are the embarrassing sponsor logos. Instead, Racing Thread is F1 clothing you are comfortable wearing anywhere. Dirty Driving listeners can get 15% off Racing Thread's entire range of t-shirts, sweatshirts, polos, and bucket hats using the code Dirty Driving. Head over to racingthread.com to shop F1 racewear for anywhere. It's chaos. It's a different type of Sunday scary. It's your newest obsession. It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Happy pre-weekend episode leading into the Spanish Grand Prix. It's been a relatively quiet week in the world of F1 in terms of news and drama, but this weekend is set to be one of the more exciting races of the season thus far. Not only has this track been used for testing for many years, meaning that the drivers and the teams know it very well, it also gives us the opportunity to see how the new upgrades that were introduced in Monaco really perform. So far this year, we've seen temporary circuits and street circuits, and this is our first true track circuit. Red Bull is bringing upgrades going into a new direction. The track has a new layout, and it's the home race for both Fernando and Carlos. Let's jump into our light and easy news. F1 is partnering with DHL to introduce biofueled trucks. During the European stint this season, mainly this summer, this new fleet of 18 trucks will transport all the F1 goodies over 6,000 miles using more efficient routes and running on hydro-treated vegetable oil, resulting in a reduction of carbon emissions by at least 60%. All of this is a part of the Net 30 goal, which has also seen increases in remote broadcasting, new transportation opportunities like overland and ocean freight, and redesigning freight containers to fit on the 18% more emission-friendly Boeing aircraft. Sustainability is something that has always been important and interesting to me. I actually studied it in school. I think I was one credit short of taking a minor in it. But through my classes and education and research, I have found that it's super important to focus on what we're doing now so we can provide a better future down the line. F1 being the global sport that it is, and the fact that it hasn't been the most sustainable sport in the past, is working on rectifying their operations so that the sport can continue for many years to come and not end because it can't sustain itself anymore. Some people think that these efforts are changing the sport for the worse, but these changes will trickle down to our everyday life. For example, the sustainable fuel that is being introduced in a few years could eventually be used in the vehicles we drive on a daily basis. F1 has extended their global partnership with Heineken. They've been partners for 7 years, where Heineken has really amplified the F1 spectacle. They will continue to focus on the growing F1 fan base with track activations, and also provide world-class entertainment moments, including my favorite DJ and Heineken's new global ambassador, Martin Garrix, who's also friends with Lando and Max, so who knows, one day I might be at a Martin Garrix concert that they are also at as well. Heineken will also continue to market their responsible drinking campaign, and the brand will be the official title race partner for the Vegas Grand Prix. The most exciting piece of news to come out of this week is the fact that Mick Schumacher is set to debut in the W14 for the first time. Mercedes and Ferrari, I believe, will be completing their first 2-day Pirelli tire test following the Grand Prix. Mick will drive in the second day after George Russell takes the wheel day one. Toto Wolff is excited to see what Mick can do, saying he has done a great job with the team so far, working hard in the simulator and giving valuable input trackside. I'm excited for Mick because not only is he hopping in an F1 car, a true F1 car, for the first time in months, he's also going to give us the ability and other teams the ability to see that he still has it. And he potentially is a more mature driver now that he's taken a step back, really honed in his skills on the simulator, and been a part of a team where Gunther Steiner isn't giving him shit for always crashing. In our need to know news, there will be a new slick tire introduced this season. This new slick tire will intro new materials planned to be used for the 2024 spec, which has been necessary and asked of due to the increasing speed and downforce of the current cars, which is just going to increase as development continues. These new slicks will officially debut at the Silverstone Grand Prix, but part of testing these tires will include this weekend's Friday sessions, FP1 and FP2, where the teams will be given 2 extra sets of tires. F1 and Sky Group will be co producing a Grand Prix broadcast for kids. This is the first of its kind and will start at the Hungarian Grand Prix. It will be available in both the UK and Germany. The show will have its own graphics, sounds, and special features, and the up and coming presenters will pair with the likes of Nico Rosberg, Danica Patrick, and Natalie Pinkham. There'll be interviews with drivers and paddock personnel and live commentating during the race. I'm hoping this is a huge success and not only extends to other countries but the US as well. This is a great initiative to introduce fans at a young age in an informational yet digestible way where they can become fans for life. McLaren have signed off on a new technical director straight from Red Bull. Rob Marshall, who has been with Red Bull for 17 years, most known as his chief engineering officer role, has moved over to McLaren. If you recall, James Key departed as the technical director, and Zach Brown and team principal Andrea Stella decided to split the role into 3, one of them being Rob. He will officially start in January 2024 and will be a great experience add to the team. This is just one of many personnel switches that have happened in this off-season, silly season is kind of what I'm calling it because silly season hasn't officially started and usually relates more to the drivers, but with the team principal swaps last year and all of the personnel swaps of teams stealing other personnel from other teams, hoping to improve their development and their cars, it's going to be an interesting run next year as most of these teams will gather a new perspective from the personnel's previous teams. The Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya will have a revised setup for this weekend. Back in 2007, a chicane was introduced before the final corner, which used to be turns 14 and 15. The chicane will be removed, which will return the section to the original layout. Additional track changes include widening the runoff area in turn 1, a new fence in turn 1 and turn 2 to improve driver safety. The circuit has also received a remodeling moment, from bathrooms being redone to curbs being repainted to the signage changing. The biggest thing is that the pit building has been enlarged and modernized. These changes make total sense because the chicane didn't really match the energy of the rest of the circuit. I'll get into that a little bit more later. And the circuit has been around for quite a bit of time, so these remodeling moments and upgrades to the circuit itself and their facilities have been needed to continue to race there in the future. 1991 saw the first Spanish Grand Prix take place at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. Schumacher and Hamilton are tied with the most wins, with 6 total, and Ferrari have been the most successful constructor with 12 total wins. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a perfect track for testing and one that has been used for many years, and it's partially thanks to its variety of turns. The circuit has 15 corners, which are a mixture of both high speed and low speed, and they trek uphill and downhill, offering a different challenge at each one. In turns one and two, we see a change of directions. In turn three, we have heavy throttle. And then there's a long, spacious left hander at turn 12. I previously mentioned the removal of the chicane. This should give drivers more speed into the main straight for an overtaking opportunity, with them not having to slow down for that chicane. Drivers know this track well, but it can still be tricky with the gravel traps creating big punishments for errors that are made. In last year's race, Leclerc sat on pole. Both Max and Charles had a great start, but Charles was able to hold on to the lead into turn one. Later in lap one, Kevin and Lewis made contact, which sent Kevin into the gravel. Lap 7 had Carlos Sainz into the gravel, and then a couple laps later, Max Verstappen went to the gravel, who had DRS issues the whole entire race. We saw an incredible battle between George and Max, one that we had never seen before. And in lap 27, Leclerc lost power. He was leading the race, pulled over, actually was able to make it back to the pits, and had to DNF. Lance took a spin after contact with Pierre, and in lap 31, Sergio Perez was able to take the lead, overtaking George. Eventually, George pit, sending Max up into second. Team orders were brought down on Red Bull with the request that Max was able to pass Checo. Checo had his famous line, "That's unfair, but okay." Max went into the lead. The last lap had Carlos Sainz absolutely breezed by Lewis, who was at risk for a DNF due to car issues. And of course, Max Verstappen took the win, his 24th win, and he actually took the championship lead from Charles at this race. The podium rounded out with both Checo and George, and it was George's second podium in the 2022 season. The weather is looking hot with chances of rain throughout. My big bet this weekend is that Alonso may take the win this weekend. Max has had not the best of luck here in the past. He did take his first win here and have taken wins since then. But I could see trouble brewing, especially with the new upgrades that Red Bull is bringing. Mercedes could bring us home a podium, whether it's George or Lewis. So I guess I'm going with Alonso, Perez, and Russell, with maybe Sainz in fourth. We have to ask ourselves if Alonso will take his first win of 2023 at home. How will Mercedes' new upgrades look on this true test of a track? And will Red Bull's something new give them a greater gap or make them fall? It's all going down this weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix, and I will be here to update you on what happened in the post-weekend episode. This podcast is brought to you by Red Racer Books, a children's book series about the marvelous world of motorsports. Looking to get the kiddos in your life interested in Formula One? The series includes the ABCs of Racing, which teaches concepts about racing with Red Racer as your guide. The 34-page book is full of gorgeous illustrations inspired by actual tracks and racing situations around the world. The series also includes the book All About Race Cars, a guide to Formula One race cars. Red Racer is joined by Roxy the Engineer, and they walk you through all the ins and outs of F1. This book is packed with 40 pages of beautiful illustrations teaching STEM facts about F1 cars. Red Racer Books is on a mission to give kids in the US and beyond a global perspective on sportsmanship, diversity, science, and technology. Dirty Driving listeners can get 20% off Red Racer Books' entire series using the code Dirty Driving. Head over to redracerbooks.com to buy the kiddos or the adults in your life their new favorite book. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Dirty Driving. Until next time, stay dirty.